So the sad thing is that what's going through their minds may be, I've got to get out of this business, but unfortunately I've made myself the go-to person. These guys need me. I need to get back in the workshop. They're never going to get anything done if I'm not there because they don't know what to do. They created that business through bad habits. They've actually built the bad habits, because when you start something, you start on your own with an idea, something that you may be passionate about. You absolutely love it, and you know that it's going to be a good business for you. You're doing it because you want kind of freedom that you don't get when you're working for someone.
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Karl Ponto. Each week I bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week I'm super excited to connect with Angela Parkinson. She specializes in helping business owners by going over options to exit a business successfully with less stress and uncertainty. She and her partners help business owners take control of their exit strategy, ensuring they walk away with maximum financial security, a preserved legacy, and peace of mind. No more sleepless nights over high taxes, broker fees, or predatory buyers. Congrats on helping founders exit, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Thank you, Karl. Thanks for inviting me.
So I'm really excited to have you on because when business owners are preparing a business for growth and for scale and for exit, there's a lot of things that they're not really aware of and what actually makes a business sellable. And so I think and a lot of that has to do with the relationships they've built with their teams, because if they don't have anyone in their team they can really hand off the reins to, or someone that they can sell it to if they want to sell it, then there's a lot of work to be done before it's ready. So I'd love to hear more about how you help business owners make their businesses ready for a sale.
Okay, so one of the most important things is to basically find out more from the business owner where he wants to go, because usually, just to give you an example, if they go the road of broker or PE, then they tend to get into the numbers straight away, want to understand, is that business even profitable? I prefer to start with knowing more about them and what they want. And the reason that I do that is because I've seen too many owners who have said to me later, I wish I'd have known this before I went to the broker. I wish I'd have known this before I even thought about selling to private equity. And those things are really more about themselves and what they want from life. And did they take their partner into consideration? Did they talk to their children? Did they really know the direction that they were going in? So I think it's really more important to find out more about the personal reasons as to why they want to sell before you start digging into the numbers. Otherwise, you end up on the other side of this where it's being sold, and then you've got a mismatch where they're living with regret. I wish I'd have known that this, because I wouldn't have sold it for another 6 months, or I wish I'd have known X, Y, Z because I would have stayed in the business longer. Why did I listen to my partner? There's all sorts of reasons why they have those regrets about selling. So it's important to understand those things before you start getting into the detail, Karl.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's such a common problem or a common pitfall, because a lot of people that are running businesses, they've been in that kind of hustle and they're so focused on keeping things moving, they don't really even stop to think about what they wanted while they're running the business or when they started it. And then there's also all those emotional changes after they're trying to exit it and retire or what have you, that they're so wrapped up in being a business owner that when they sell it off and they leave, there's that sense of identity that's lost and that sense of purpose that can be lost. And so any sort of regrets or kind of mistakes they might have made during the exiting process only compound the emotional burden of of exiting a business. And so I can see how approaching the exit prep from a standpoint of, hey, as you as a founder, who are you trying to be afterwards, or what do you want your life to be like? What do you stand for? And just being more in touch with themselves allows them to start prepping for that transition earlier. It's not just from the business side of things, and especially before the numbers, but also so when they do eventually pull the trigger and leave, they're feeling confident that they made the right choice and that they have a clearer path forwards and don't suffer from the emotional loss of identity and purpose that comes with exiting a business.
Exactly, Karl. Because one of the things that they do is they let's say they started that business 40, 50 years ago, because obviously it's the baby boomer generation that are getting ready to retire and sell more so than the younger generation. But what they've done during those years is they're tying their identity to that business. So it almost feels like a loss of themselves by the fact that they're not running that business anymore, because it's something that they've always done. The unfortunate side of it is if they leave it too late and they say, okay, I've got another few years left in me, that's not really how you want to be looking at your business when you're thinking about selling, let's say 5 or 6 years from now, because that could be too late. And the plan needs to start evolving as soon as possible. Really, to start today is more important than leaving it. Like I said, I'll just give you an example of something. I have a client who found 2 really good businesses, and the owners had been hanging on to those businesses for a lot longer than what they felt that they could actually, run it for. And on the day of this is 2 businesses 6 months apart, happened to the same client. He's put the money on the table. They've agreed on an offer, and on the day of closing, the owner died. And 6 months later, it happened again to him. So one of those businesses ended up collapsing completely, and it was a really good business. It was in engineering on the Mideast side of the country. And the whole thing just fell apart. And unfortunately, they've got some really good skilled workers in that particular field that knew exactly what they were doing, but didn't know where to go from there, because obviously there was nobody to basically lead or run the company. And that's happening because there are no systems in place. And if you don't have any systems, then you can't have anybody take over the lead, because they don't know what the owner wants. So that one went. And then the second business, that dissolved, but it didn't completely dissolve. It went backwards with the valuation. So you had 2 brothers and a sister, whereby the sister decided, well, we're not selling Dad's business for that. It's worth a lot more. And the brother said, but with the money's on the table, it's here right now. We can take what's there. He's all ready to come in and run it. Why don't we just sell it now? And she said, no. Well, as time went on, there was no one there to lead the people. And therefore, instead of growing, the business started to decline in value. And they ended up having to sell at 1/3 less than what they could have got had they have made the decision right away. And this is the kind of thing that business owners do. They leave everything right until the very last minute, to the point where they can't take it anymore. And I've just been talking to a colleague of mine who said he's actually a broker. And he says, Angie, I can't believe how many people are coming back to us saying you may as well tear the contract up. Why? You signed for a year. Yeah, well, I thought I could do another year, but 6 months in, I've realized I'm too tired. I've locked the doors and I've let my employees go. And these are really good, profitable businesses. And unfortunately, leaving it that long has caused a situation where they've just become so tired they can't take it anymore.
Yeah, that is sad, and something that I think is from just a lack of foresight and planning and really thinking about the exit before they're kind of at the point where they can't take it anymore is a big problem. And it's something that I think there's some misconception around when people, because obviously there's some startups that the founders are building it with the intent to like scale it and exit it and flip it. And if they're upfront with that as you're starting it, then that's and they're honest with the employees you bring on, knowing that, hey, we're just building this to get it acquired. It's not like a lifestyle business. It's not like we're trying to do this for whole careers. So people think about exit planning that early in the process is like just for companies that are trying to be flipped and it's a short-term thing. But it's really about the exit plan is something that needs to be started way earlier because it helps, like you said, the importance of having those systems and being able to not have everything relying on the owner, because obviously they're going to be burnt out and too tired when they get to the point where they just want to pull the plug. Like you said, these last two examples, which are so tragic and common, unfortunately. I think the exit and succession planning is something that it needs to be thought about even when a business that is considered a lifestyle business is started, because if they give plenty of time to build those systems in place and have one, it makes it so that it's not all on the owner to get things done and have it all be in their head, and they can just probably enjoy the lifestyle of being a business owner more because they're going to have the ability to delegate things more effectively, and they can take a 2-week vacation without the whole business grinding to a halt because they actually have the systems and the team is being delegated to and is able to handle the operations of the business. And it's the sort of work that's done to prep a business for exit is just doing the sort of things that should have been happening the entire time of a business is going to be run well and have the systems and processes to be successful and not have everything on the shoulders or on the mind of the leadership in the first place. So I think it's almost like the building the business right the first time involves succession planning and exit planning at that early stage, because it just means you're going to be running it better in general. So it's a weird kind of mismatch that just the term exit planning, I think, puts people, oh, I don't have to worry about that, to worry about the exits. Like, no, this should just be how to run a business well, so it's not all on your shoulders, but that's not as punchy as exit plan. So no, is that kind of what you feel like people should be doing it that early in the process? Like, how early do you recommend people get these sort of things in line?
I think if you're in your 50s, you need to be thinking about it today. Even if you're not planning to retire until you're 65 or 70. Because we're now at that stage where we have so many 65 to 85-year-old business owners that are the ones that haven't planned and they don't know where to go. So the sad thing is that what's going through their minds may be, I've got to get out of this business, but unfortunately I've made myself the go-to person. These guys need me. I need to get back in the workshop. They're never going to get anything done if I'm not there because they don't know what to do. They created that business through bad habits. They've actually built the bad habits, because when you start something, you start on your own with an idea, something that you may be passionate about. You absolutely love it. And you know that it's going to be a good business for you. You're doing it because you want kind of freedom that you don't get when you're working for someone. And then the next thing is that they've employed a couple of guys because they know that they need other people to help them in the business. Before you know it, the wife gets involved after the kids start school. And then maybe years later, the son's now involved because, he's left school. He wants to be a plumber. Maybe he wants to be an electrician, roofer. Those kinds of jobs, they're really, really important to any country, really. They're the backbone of any country, even down to, laying the roads. We're not going anywhere. We're not doing anything without the main parts of what we need and the construction side of it. So fortunately, I don't think AI is going to take those over anytime soon. whilst they're taking over the, sitting behind the job and the paperwork type of things. But we all need, every home at some point needs a plumber. Every home, somebody has something going wrong with the lights or the tech, and PowerPoint's not working in the walls. You need an electrician. Those positions are quite valuable. So if you have a business owner who's grown a business with, let's say, 10 to 15 men, and he's always done the contracts, he's always been the one that's been building the relationship with the person that needs that work, but they haven't documented how they communicate with each other as a team. They haven't documented the process on do they get a ticket, and does the wife say here's an address of where you're going, etc. But is it actually on a platform that everybody can read and understand, where the owner can take 3 or 4 weeks off? So if an owner can't take 3 to 4 weeks away from his business because he fears that when he comes back it's going to be in a mess, then the buyer's not looking at it as a business. The buyer's looking at that as buying a job. And business buyers don't want to buy jobs. They want to buy a business that runs like a well-oiled machine. And the part that's missing are the systems. My generation have grown up putting everything on paper, writing a journal, doing handwritten invoices, and the thought of having to do a spreadsheet can be irritating to a lot of them. I've seen it. Oh, don't tell me I've got to put all this on the computer. I've always done it like this. I've got journals with everything, but at the end of the day, we're living in that time where people can't see that business if they can't understand or see something online that shows the balance sheets, the profits, the assets, and everything that goes with that business. How many people do they have? Do they have a good culture? Do they have a quick turnaround of people because they hate the job? A buyer wants to see all of that. They want to know that it's a transferable business. I've had 18 months ago, when I was working with another firm, I spoke with 400 business owners and sellers over just a 6-month period. And I was only able to make offers on 3 deals. This was with a company that had millions of dollars to spend, but out of 400, imagine only being able to make offers on 3. And those 3 businesses had well-documented systems. They functioned really, really well. They didn't need the owner to be around. He could be away for 6 weeks and it would never affect anything. And he could spend time with his family. When you don't have a system and you're wanting to take a holiday, how are you supposed to do that if you don't start planning your exit now?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that a lot of people start businesses because they don't want to be stuck in a job and beholden to another company's kind of needs and stuff, but they basically build that around themselves, and they're now just as trapped, or even more so than they were if they had been an employee, because they don't have the systems, and they basically just kind of constructed an even tighter prison around themselves. So when you're first talking with people, and if they don't have any of these systems or processes set up, what's the first step they can do to start fixing that? Ideally when they're still like a decade or so out from planning on retiring, but what's kind of the best first step they can take to get on the right path and have a business that's ready to sell when they're ready to leave?
I think the most important thing that they can do, Karl, is to get the managers, their top people who understand what's going on in the factory, if it's an engineering company, for example, to bring them into the office and say, guys, we need to start documenting the systems. I need you in a position where people don't need to come to you for every tiny little thing anymore. What does that look like? And tell them, imagine we've got a new crew coming in. We're about to employ 5 people that know engineering. They're really good at what they do. but obviously they're new coming into our company and they don't know how we work or function. Can we start building systems and documenting a process that they can follow, like an instruction manual? We can guide them, through the process of what we do here, but we need them to have something in front of them where they just don't need to keep turning to you for every tiny little thing. Because I want you guys to have more of a freedom to not have to be there telling them all the nuances, but more having an overall view of how the company's doing. Have we got too much waste? Where can we make things more profitable? The types of things that those managers don't have time for right now because they're too busy in the weeds with all the employees. So if they start there with their best managers, or let's say, for example, it's a really big company and they've got several different departments, you want the head of each department to be able to come to the owner and say, this is what we've been doing, this is how it works. Okay, but have we got anything down on paper? Or is everybody coming to you? No, everybody's coming to me because I need to tell them what to do. That's because when each department says that to the owner, that's because they haven't documented any of the work that they've been doing. And they need to start planning that now, because otherwise they'll get for their business what was happening with the 400 calls that I mentioned. We were able to make full offers on 3. I did make 3 offers on 3 other businesses, but the owners and brokers got very upset about the offers that I made, which was half the value of what they thought it was worth. And the reason for that is because they just didn't have any systems. And buyers don't want to buy jobs.
Yep. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think it's a great way of ending the episode, that buyers don't want to buy jobs. They want to buy a business, and a business, it needs to have those systems. So thank you so much for connecting with me today, Angela. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection podcast, please like, subscribe, and leave a review. If you want to learn more about myself or Angela, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.